All right, team, we're going to review what a subject and predicate is in a sentence.
This is the tale of Mr. Morton. Mr. Morton is who? He is the subject of our tale, and the predicate tells what Mr. Morton must do. Mr. Morton walked down the street. Mr. Morton walked. Mr. Morton talked to his cat. Mr. Morton talked. Hello, cat. You look good. Mr. Morton was lonely. Mr. Morton was. Mr. Morton is the subject of the sentence, and what the predicate says he does. Mr. Morton knew just one girl. Mr. Morton knew. Mr. Morton grew flowers for Pearl. Mr. Morton grew. Mr. Morton was very shy. Mr. Morton was. Mr. Morton is the subject of the sentence, and what the predicate says he does. The subject is a noun. That's a person, place, or thing. It's who or what the sentence is about. And the predicate is the verb. That's the action word that gets this subject up and out. Mr. Morton wrote Pearl a poem. Mr. Morton wrote. Pearl replied in the afternoon. Pearl replied by a note. Mr. Morton was very nervous. Mr. Morton was. Mr. Morton is the subject of the sentence, and what the predicate says he does. The cat stretched, the sun beat down, a neighbor chased his kid. Come here, kid, come on. Each sentence is completed when you know what the subject did. Mr. Morton knocked on her door. Mr. Morton knocked. Mr. Morton sat on her porch. Yes, he just sat there and rocked. Mr. Morton was a nervous man. When she opened up the door, he ran. Mr. Morton climbed up his stairs. Mr. Morton climbed. Mr. Morton rhymed pretty words. Mr. Morton rhymed. Mr. Morton was lonely. Mr. Morton was, until Pearl showed up with a single rose. Who says women can't propose? Now Mr. Morton is happy, and Pearl and the cat are too. They're the subject of the sentence, and what the predicate says, they do.
All right, gotta love some Schoolhouse Rock. All right, so simple subjects and subjects and predicates. Remember, every sentence, in order for it to be complete, must have either a noun or a pronoun and a verb. So the verb can often express action or state what something is or was. So sneeze, jump, bark, or is, was, things like that. So during his biology lab, Tommy danced on a table. The action verb is danced, and then when you ask who danced, we learned that it was Tommy. So if you wanted to narrow this down to the very shortest sentence possible, you could eliminate all words except Tommy and danced. That could be a complete thought because it has a subject and it has a predicate. Remember, not all verbs are action verbs, and some just state being. So am or is, are, other that are listed there. They link the subject to something about the subject. So Ron's bathroom is a disaster. The bathroom is the subject. Ron's just a possessive noun telling us whose bathroom it is. But the bathroom is the focus of the sentence, and it is something. So it is connecting the idea of a disastrous bathroom to the descriptive adjective. Sometimes we are asked to identify a complete subject. Sometimes we are asked to identify just a simple subject. The simple subject is the single word, or in some case, words, if more than one person or thing is doing something. And the complete subject is all of the descriptions around it. So the big hungry green Martian grabbed a student from the back row. So I want you to think, if you were to be able to underline, what words would you underline to consider the complete subject? Who or what the sentence is about, and any words that could or do describe it. Okay, now that you have an idea in your head, I want to double check that you're thinking correctly. I want you to look for the verb. Look for the action in this sentence. And once you have that action word, then figure out who did that. Okay, I've got a couple of nouns in this sentence, and I need to choose the correct word that is being used as the subject. So find the verb and then find out who is doing that verb. Okay, so now that you think you have an idea, let's see how you did. All right, so the Martian is the one that did the grabbing. The grabbing was the verb. And the words that described the Martian: huge, hairy, hungry, and green. The word the is also an adjective, even though it's just a small, unimportant word we often call an article. Yep, it's an article, but its overall part of speech is an adjective. So that is our complete subject there. Simple subject would be just one word. For example, here, the bright copper coin sparkled on the sidewalk. I'm going to find my verb, sparkled. I'm going to ask what was sparkling. The coin was. And so, pardon me, coin is the simple subject. It's bright and it's copper, but if I'm just looking for what the one word is that is doing the sparkling, that would be coin. So that is the simple subject. Important note, a subject is never part of a prepositional phrase. So this is a very, very easy misunderstanding, and people often identify a word as the subject because it looks like it makes a lot of sense. So if you take a look at this example, neither of these boys wants to try a piece of pineapple pizza. Well, my verb is wants, so I have to find out who wants to do something. And I look in front of it and it says boys. Well, that would make perfect sense. The noun boys want something. However, when I go further back at the beginning, it says of these boys. That's a prepositional phrase. So in order to find the subject, I have to take that out. And so in this case, the word neither is the actual subject of the sentence. Neither of the boys wanted to try the pizza. And we don't normally think about those kinds of words as like the word both or neither or many or each. We often don't think of those as possible subjects, but when we've got a prepositional phrase as a descriptor for these words, then we have to take that prepositional phrase out and look at these unusual nouns to identify as our subject. Sometimes the subject does not come before the verb. Traditionally, they do. Traditionally, a sentence is subject, predicate. Sometimes not, though. So if you take a look at this example, in a small house adjacent to our backyard lives a family with 10 noisy kids. Again, I want you to find the verb. Okay? Once you find the verb, I want you to determine who is doing that verb. And remember the clue I said, that in this case, the predicate is going to come before the subject. All right, think you have an answer? Let's see. So the verb was lives, and when you ask who lives, it's the family with 10 noisy children. So the simple subject in this sentence is family. In a small house adjacent to our backyard, those are a couple prepositional phrases. So I couldn't identify those as a subject because that just breaks one of the rules I've just said. So in this case, finding that verb, asking who's doing that verb, who's living, that's going to help you identify that subject. Okay, so we're going to stop there. If this has been an in-class assignment, there will be some practice sentences attached that you can go back and try to find the subjects or the predicates. If you're watching this for review, there are lots of websites that can help you do some practice. All right. Thanks, folks.